All right, my friends, we are going to work on making our very first project, which is the sweet Star Accordion. So your first step is to take this little baggie out and to be ready. You also need your supplies, right? You need your cutting mat. This is a nice thing because when you cut into it with a razor, it is self-healing, so it's not gonna fall apart over time. So it's a really nice surface to cut into. I'm not sure if we're really gonna need it for this one. Only when we really have to use an X-Acto knife are we gonna really need this, but it's just a nice thing as an artist to have in your life. So here it is, ready to go. And we have our clear ruler. I love a clear ruler. And the reason I love it is because you can see if things are square. I have a few here. This is the one that's in your packet. Here's one that I have in my studio that I like because it's long. And then I have another one floating around here somewhere, but you don't really need it. What do I mean by square? I'm talking about things being straight. So oftentimes when you have like a piece of paper, and obviously this has been cut by a machine, so it hopefully is square, but what you can do is you can take your ruler and if you look through it, let's see, we can read inches here and we can square it up. So in other words, you can line up these lines as you're making measurements and you can make sure that things are straight by looking straight through the ruler. And it's really helpful. So I'll revisit this as we're cutting things and measuring things, but it's a good thing to have. And we'll be using it as we use our ruler occasionally. I really try not to do a whole lot of measuring when we're doing our things because, I don't know, I always end up measuring things wrong in the moment. And so, I don't want us to have that sort of hiccup. There are a couple other things I wanted to talk to you about in terms of materials before we get started with our demonstration. Isn't this great, just looking at my hands? I wanted to talk to you about things being archival, and I wanted to mention paper grain. So there is a handout on this. Let's find it. I think it's the bright green one, yes. Paper grain. So paper grain means the direction that most of the fibers of the piece of paper are running in. And with better pieces of paper that have long fibers, you'll be able to figure that out. With something like this, which is kind of a crappy piece of paper, right? The grain or the fibers of the paper itself are very, very short. And so you don't really feel any resistance when you fold it over one way or another. However, if you have a nicer piece of paper, this is a piece of paper that's a little bit nicer. I'm gonna fold it over this way and it folds really easily. And then when I fold it over this way, let's see, which one's harder? This way is the way it's easier. So the easier way is the direction of the grain. So oftentimes when I have materials that I'm gonna cut into small pieces, I will put pencil marks on the back just indicating the direction. The reason for doing this is when you cut things up into small pieces, oftentimes it's hard to figure out which way the grain is going. So this is a good thing so you don't have to keep checking it. Here's a piece of Davy board, which is the bookbinding board that we're going to be using. And you'll notice that I've already done that with this one. I had a much larger sheet where it was easy for me to figure out where the grain was going, but with this, when I fold it, because it's so small, it's hard to tell. I can feel that this gives me a little less resistance, and so this is where the grain is going. Now, why do we care about this? Well, we care about it because when you glue things together, if you want them to stay put and you want them to stay flat, then it is important. I'm sure that you've had the experience somewhere in your past where you've made like a collage of some kind, and the collage has had parts that pop up, right? After, I don't know how long, but after time, it starts to pop up. Here's why. The grain is in conflict. So if I glued this piece of paper in this direction to this, what would happen over time is the paper itself would expand and contract according to the humidity that is present. So everything expands and contracts according to humidity, and things like paper are particularly vulnerable to that stuff. And we live in a really humid environment here in New York State. And so your paper's always moving whether you realize it or not. So as it moves, if it's not moving in the same direction, like if it's like this, both things are moving in the same direction. But if it's like this, they're moving in conflict with one another, and eventually something's gonna pop up. We care about this with book arts because we're gonna be gluing together lots of different things. And if our grain is not in concert with one another, it's gonna give us troubles after we're done. All right, that is that. What else do we need to know about here? The test for paper grain is rolling the paper. So you just basically fold it over to see, just like this, to see which is giving you the least amount of resistance. And the least amount of resistance indicates the direction that the grain is going in. So as I fold this over, I think that I'm getting less push, let's say, from this direction. So that means that the grain is going up and down, okay? Sometimes we'll refer to this as grain long, meaning it's going the length of the piece of paper. So that's one thing, paper grain. Let's turn this to you. You can also dampen the piece of paper, but I would only do that with a little scrap because, you know, when it starts to roll up because it's been dampened, well, you don't want that for your good paper, right? So you have to use it on a little scrap. We're going to be covering some binding board today, and I'm going to show you that as we do our Sweet Star Accordion. So that's what's here on these pages. And then adhesives. There are some recipes for homemade adhesives here. You don't have to make any of them. Basically, we are going to be using primarily some kind of glue stick. Glue stick, you know, whenever you get anything from a commercial manufacturer, you can call them up and you can ask them about things. Like I've called up GM before about their adhesives, and they'll tell you stuff, but it's basically based on their projections because a lot of their formulas haven't been around for a long time. So they can't say it's going to last 100 years because obviously they haven't been able to test it over 100 years. So I've had good and bad situations with glue. Generally, here's the poop on glue sticks. Glue sticks are temporarily archival. Now, what do I mean by archival in the first place? Archival means that it's going to last a long time. That's the bottom line of what it means. But it also means that it is acid neutral. So it's right in the middle of the pH balance. So it's not more base, and it's not more acidic. We know when things are acidic, like newsprint, right? Because over time, they turn yellow. If you have a piece of newsprint and you put it out in the sun for even just a week, you will see that it has turned yellow. And one of the reasons it's turning yellow is because it's literally burning up. This is made from a very cheap sort of fiber. It is made from the cross section of a tree, and that part is highly acidic. And so it's a very cheap piece of paper to make, but it's not something that's going to last a long time. The same thing is true for glues. Some glues have a high acidic rate or pH, and it's basically going to burn up, crack up over time, and not hold on anymore. Usually when something's archival, it means that it has a kind of long molecular structure, meaning like with a piece of paper like this, if this sat around for a few years, like an old paperback novel or something, you know, on your back porch, like stacks of newspaper, we don't really have those anymore, but I did as a kid, you would notice that they get really crumbly over time. So it's not just the pH that is a problem, it is the actual fibers themselves being so short that they're not interwoven with one another, all right? And so what happens is over time, if there's not this kind of complex knitting of the material, it's just gonna let go over time. So when you have a piece of paper, it is archival if it's pH balanced, and if it is of a superior fiber, like a Asian paper, often called rice papers, but there's no real paper made of rice. It's just made of plant fibers. And then Western papers, which are typically called rag papers, which are made from very long cotton, linen, sometimes silk fibers, abaca, so natural fibers that are long. This is a natural fiber too, for all intents and purposes, but the part of the tree it comes from is just got really short fibers, so it's cut. That's the problem. If it were up and down the bark of the tree, that would be a really nice long fiber, but it's not. This is cut straight across, so it's very short. So this is not archival. glues. We're going to be using for most of our demos this kind of glue. Now, I have talked to other book artists who have told me that this stuff, you know, like a glue stick, holds on for about 10 years and then it pretty much lets go. So this is not for your long-term projects, the projects you want to last for 10, 20, 30 years. But for our workshops, it's perfect because it's fast, it's clean, and it helps us understand, you know, what we need to do in an expedient way. So some of our materials that we have for our demonstrations are most certainly archival. Some of them are not. So because we're making dummy books, books that do not have content, these are just so you can try out the books to see what they're like. Because of that, we're not making things out of 100% archival materials, all right? Just so you know that when you make your own books, if you have some philosophical, conceptual reason where you don't want to make your work out of archival materials, that's perfectly fine as long as there's a reason. If it's just out of laziness, cheapness, ignorance, poverty is always an excuse, but any of those other things are not. You should strive to make your artwork out of good materials. So rag papers, Asian papers, depending on the application, how it's going to be, you know, used. Okay, so moving on. Adhesives can be archival. So, back to this. This is stuff you can make if you're feeling really industrious. You don't have to. We're going to be using glue stick, and we're also going to be using PVA, which is often mixed with something called methacellulose. Our PVA, because we're going to be using it in very small doses, it's straight out of the jar. It dries really quickly, and that's the problem with it. So for that reason, some people slow down the drying time with a material that is also archival, but a very weak glue called methacellulose. I didn't add any methacellulose to this. I could have, but you know, it breaks down over time and gets very liquidy, and so I thought, let's just go with this since we're not going to be really working on giant things that require fast application of glue. Let's just keep it simple. So you might want to, if you find that this dries too fast for you, add very carefully a little bit of water to it. This stands for, PVA stands for polyvinyl adhesive, which is basically a plastic. It's very similar to the polyvinyls that we use in acrylic paint and things like that, other kinds of glues. It is archival, so this will last forever, theoretically, right? We're not gonna be around forever to figure that one out, but a long time. Acrylic matte medium is something that's accessible to you that's not, it's pretty similar to this, but it dries a lot faster. It tends to be thicker. Acrylic matte medium is basically just the medium that's in acrylic paint that doesn't include pigment, so it's just clear. And that can be used as an archival glue as well, in a pinch. All right, chickadees, let us see what we have going here. Here is, oh, that's not the right bag. This is the bag. Sweet Star Accordion, and I inserted sweet because this is a sweet project. Alrighty, here are a couple examples of this project. So basically this is what we're aiming for. Woo! And it folds out. Mine's been folded for a while, so it's a little sticky, but it folds out to this nice pattern that whoop, flattens out again. So it's kind of like magic. Yeah, so it's a cool thing for us to be making. Let's see, what are our materials? We need 2 pieces of Davy board, and that's what this is, bookbinding board. We have 2 pieces of decorative paper. That's gonna go over our Davy board as the covers, okay. We have a number of pages of basically colored photocopy paper. And with all this kind of paper, I don't count it individually because that, when I was putting your kits together, that would have made me crazy. So I just took what I thought was about right. So basically, I think while you can make something in all the same color, I think it's useful to make it in 2 different colors because of the way we're going to put this together. So the bottom line with these pages is that it can be any kind of odd number, like 5, 7, 9, 11, etc. Okay, so the way this is put together, you can't have an even number of pages. So what does that mean? I think we're going to aim for 7. Okay, so 1, 2, 3 of this, right? And then 1, 2, 3, 4 of this. So I have some left over, that's a-okay. It's better to have more than less, and I'm going to use some of these probably to show you multiple times how to do the folding. So we're just going to put that aside, and I think the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to cover our Davy board. All right, if you can see where the lines are, that's great to line them up. With such small materials, we're not going to have a big problem with things popping up over time. My first thing is to do is to put down some newsprint, because newsprint is going to be dispendable paper that we can put glue on. Once it has glue on it, we can just toss it out, and that's it. So we don't have to worry about getting glue all over our nice surfaces, but rather we can just throw it out. All right, nice side, not nice side. So the back side is up. Boop. And now I have my piece of Davy board. I'm going to put that right in the middle. This is theoretically a square, right? I cut all the materials, so of course, not being a robot, I may have made things slightly off, but it doesn't matter for this particular situation. I did my best. So I'm centering this just by eye. I'm not going to measure. I'm just going to, my eyeballs can tell me this is pretty much in the center, and I'm going to trace this. Okay, so I've just traced the Davy board. Now, I'm going to take my other piece of Davy board, and I'm going to put it up against the corner. What? I'm putting it right up against the corner like this on an angle. So right up against the corner, up against the corner. I think you can see that. I'm going to do it from here because I think it's probably the easiest for you to see. So it's upright, and I'm going to trace the only side that I can trace. So I'm going to put that up against there, against the corner. So boop, right up against the corner of the board. Now I'm tracing this. Just an angle. We don't have to have it, I mean, we want it to be as straight as possible in terms of the angle. So in other words, not like this, so that it crosses over the edges of the paper. And this is what I'm going to end up with after I've done all 4 sides, okay? So what am I looking at here? I've got a little tiny gap here. And what that gap is 1 thickness of this board. 1.5 thickness will enable me to nicely cover the edge of the board in a beautiful fold. And I'm going to show that to you. So what does that mean to us? This is where I had a little bit of a slip, but here we can look here. There's a gap here, and so I'm going to cut off that edge, find my scissors. I'm not going to cut on the line, but I'm going to cut a little bit right of the line. So I'm just going to estimate what that half is, like this. And remember, I cut in a weird way, so don't let that freak you out. So yoink. So there we go. I could have been a little more generous. Let me do it again. Now remember, oh, my scissors are the worst. I should get another pair. Remember, this is the first time you're doing everything. So I don't want you to be worked up over things not turning out exactly right. When you do things for the first time, you have to brace yourself for things not turning out perfectly well the first time. This is practice. So you don't get to start practicing unless you get started doing. And whenever you do anything, there are always going to be little mistakes here and there, and that's how you learn. So allow yourself that, be kind to yourself in that respect. So I've just done one, and I want to do the other one as well. So let's see, here's a line. I can't see what that is, but I'm just gonna do it from here. And I'm gonna trace my little square again, exact same thing that I did just a moment ago. So I've traced the square, and then I'm taking my other piece of board, and I'm putting it against here so that I have measured 1 thickness of the board across the edges here, okay? So I've got a little bit of a gap, and I'm gonna cut to the right of the gap. Yoink, yoink, and done. Okay, so I've got 2 of these that are exactly like boop, and my 2 boards, and yay, now I can move on to the next step, which is glue. Okay, so glue. Let me find the better glue stick. I say better only because it's got more in it. Oof. and it feels like it's not all dried up, so that's good. What I'm gonna be doing is applying glue. I have my nasty paper underneath that I can throw out when it gets all gluey. And whenever I apply glue, I'm going to start from the middle and work out, like the rays of the sun, okay? The reason I'm doing that is so I don't draw glue back. If I went back in this direction, I'd get glue up under the edges of the paper. So I don't want that, so I'm gonna do this. Whoop, 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 whoop. And I wanna get a nice, even, thin layer. But now I've got glue surrounding my nice paper and I don't want that. So I'm gonna pick this up and yoink, get rid of that. Okay, put that right back down and I'm gonna slap my little board down, all right? We're always gonna do the top and the bottom in terms of the folding first, just as a habit. So I'm gonna use my paper, not my fingers, to do the folding. So I'm gonna fold this over, flatten it over, nice. And then I'm gonna fold this over and flatten it over, okay? Now, as you look at this, look at that. There's this little hangover, right? That's good, we want that. So let's find our bone folder, here it is. And I'm gonna smash it down in the direction of inside of the book. So in other words, boop, towards the inside, right? You don't have to make that noise, but there we go. Push down, right? My glue is still nice and sticky, so I'm gonna take this side and I'm gonna push that down over, flat, and flat. Now, oh my gosh, look how gorgeous that is. Oh, no gaps, here, nothing. It looks fantastic, very professional from the front, nice and flat. If it's not nice and flat, if it's wrinkling or something like that, you can put a piece of paper over this and gently flatten this out with your bone folder. I do suggest it's good to work from the inside out like so. A lot of it does depend on how cranky your piece of paper is though. Bookbinders get very, they can get very particular about certain things like the edges. Some people sand their edges before they turn the paper over. Some people are very careful with the angles that they do. I'm giving you the down and dirty introduction into this, and we can start getting fussy as this goes along, but we are not getting fussy right from the get-go because fussy is no fun. All right, so we did one, now I'm gonna do the other, and you're gonna get to watch me do this again. This is a nice dry piece of paper with no glue on it, so I'm gonna use this as my glue surface. Inside out, nice and thin. Doop, 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 doop. Okay, gluey, yuck, get rid of that, put it aside, onto a nice clean piece, putting down my board. I'm gonna do the top and bottom first, right? So I'm gonna use the paper, not my gluey fingers, to fold this over. Fold the top, fold the bottom. Because this is a square, you know, you can decide what the top and bottom is. I've got this hangover stuff here, right? That a little bit here, that's fine, that's what I want. I'm gonna press that down with my bone folder. I could just use my thumb if I wanted to, but I'm trying to keep my hands as clean as possible. All right, is this still sticky? If it's not, you can carefully add more glue to the surface, okay? It's not like you can't. Now, bring that over, flatten it out. Really, I'm pressing it down. I am giving it care. I'm imparting my
love and desire for this to work into the object.
And there, it works. So now I have two, boop, two covers. Yoink. So that's gonna be the front and the back of our little sweet star accordion. Now we're gonna make our pages. So I put these into two files, or rather two different piles, not files. One had 4, one had 3. 3 plus 4 is 7. That's how many pages we're gonna have in total. Always an odd number for this. So this is a little bit tricky, so I want you to watch it. I'm gonna do it again and again and again, at least 7 times so that you can see it. So I'm folding this over, like so, right? Folding it right in half. Then I'm turning it over and I'm gonna fold it over again. Same side. All right, so that's what it looks like, right? The creases are on the inside. Now when we fold something, sometimes we'll call it a valley fold or a mountain fold. So this is pretty intuitive. This is a valley fold because it goes in, right? This side would be a mountain fold, right? Because it goes out like a peak. So, valley side. I'm gonna flip this over, whoop, to the mountain side. So we're on the mountain side, and now I'm going to take this corner and fold it over here. So look at this, diagonal, yoink, fold that over. Now, I'm doing this with my fingers. I could do it with my bone folder, and it would be nice and crisp, and bone folder is probably where we should go with this. So I'm gonna open this up a little bit, right? And I've got this fold in the middle. I'm going to poke it right in the middle. Poke, and something magical happens. Look, it flips. And when it flips, I'm going to have faith that it's gonna flatten out to this beautiful little square. And it does, it works. I promise you it works. I'm gonna flatten this out a little bit, and I have one page folded. Now I'm gonna do another one. Just the same darn thing. Fold in half. Same side, valley side, fold in half again. Whoop, right? Flip, whoop, over to the mountain side. So that's the side that pokes up. Now I'm going to do a diagonal fold. You may ask, is there a correct side? No, because this is a square. We don't have to worry about one side over another. Okay, so now it's like this, right? I can see creases here. This is the hard crease, the mountain crease. I'm gonna poke it, boop, right in the middle, and it will fold. And then I will have faith that it folds straight down, because it does. Why do I say faith? Because it doesn't seem like it should work, right? But it does. So now you're gonna watch me do all of the others, and you can do this along with me too. So folding in half, fold it in half again, boop, boop, boop. Flip it over, fold, 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 flip it over again, poke, and there we go. I'm gonna do all of these. Doesn't really matter what order I do them in terms of the color. I'm gonna do all the orange first, and then I'm gonna hit the sort of goldenrod color I've got there. Fold over, flip. Oh, wait a minute. No, that was wrong. So that was good for you to see. Okay, folded it over this way, folded it over this way. Can I tell you how many of these I've made over the years? And there I was making a mistake. So it's folded towards the inside on both sides here. Flip it over like that, corner to corner. Ta-da, da, 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 da. Okay, good. Use my bone folder to make it nice and flat. You know, I remember when I was a student and first doing this sort of stuff and thinking that this was a dumb tool. Like, what in the world does a person need with this? You're gonna be shocked at how much you love your bone folder, because you can make creases, you can flatten things. It's just a little bit more beautiful and fantastic than just doing it with your finger. There's something really nice and crisp about it that you're going to appreciate. And then you'll be like a person that carries your bone folder around their pocketbook or your back pocket or whatever it is that you use for carrying things. It's not something you can put on your phone. Okay, poke. Okay, now I'm getting my yellows done. And there were 3 of them. Same side. Okay, flip. Poke in the middle. So on this little segment, we are just doing this, and we have talked about, uh-oh, wait a minute, my faith was not what it should have been. Flatten that down. Okay, there we go. We're doing this little introductory accordion, and we've talked about paper grain, the concept of archival materials. We've talked about paper grain, archival materials. What else? I think that's probably it. Archival, like glue and stuff like that, and some of the materials that we're going to use. Yeah. So the thing about this course is that we do one thing and you learn a little bit, and then we do it again in another form, and it really gets cemented
into your mind. So this stuff is gonna be second nature to you. Okay, this is my 3, this is my 4. Now this is hard to put together in a way that you can remember. So I have this trick, okay? For my 4s, the part that opens, right? That corner, the only corner that fully opens, like this corner doesn't fully open, this one doesn't. The only corner that fully opens, like a little mouth, right? We're gonna put an X on the corner here, and then we're gonna flip it over and do it there too. So back and front, little X. So I'm gonna do that boop, boop, to all of my corners. Okay. X, X, X on my paper corner. This is gonna be covered up with glue, so I'm not worried about my little X's showing, unless I'm using like a ballpoint pen or something silly, or if worse, like a felt tip pen or a magic marker, something that would bleed through. We don't want that. Okay, now yellow. We're gonna do the opposite. So this was the part we did for the orange here. We're not doing that. We're gonna do the closed corner, which is right across the street from this. So this is the open part. Nope, not doing that. We're gonna do it right here where it's closed. I'm gonna put a little O, both sides. Closed corner. O, O. And then again, closed corner. So the one that's fully closed. Okay, so here's my pile of X's, boop, O's. Now, I could be very careful and just apply glue here, or I could be tricky, 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 and slip a piece of paper in here so I'm sure not to get glue on the other parts of the page. So I'm gonna try that out. I'm gonna put the glue down just like before, from the middle, out on a glue surface that's like newsprint that I can cast away easily. So that's there. I'm gonna put my O, I'm gonna land it right on top of the X. X and O. Yoink. I'm gonna pull that out, and they should be glued together, but I'm not gonna play with it because the glue needs a little bit of time to set up. So I'm gonna alternate this. I'm gonna go XO, 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 which is yellow, orange, yellow, orange, yellow, orange, or orange, yellow, orange, yellow, whatever. I'm gonna flip this over, and I'm gonna do the same thing again. I'm gonna slip a clean piece of paper under this corner, and everything's all right as long as I keep alternating and gluing the X, X plus the O. And I'm trying to make it as straight as I possibly can. I don't need that. It's not always easy, you know, just do your best. And also, you might find that your pages were not entirely square in the first place. So now I have this, I have this. You can rest assured that when you make this stuff on your own, you can make it much more perfect than these dummy books that we've been making. So here's my O, put some glue on that. Gonna line up the X with that, etc., etc. You're gonna watch me do the whole thing. Okay, now I'm gonna put a O on top of that because I'm alternating these. What happens if you don't alternate them? Well, they just don't open up nicely, that's all. Does the house catch on fire? No, it does not. Does your head explode? No, 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 no. If you make a mistake, what is it? It's a mistake, big deal. It's not costing anybody's life. You learn from it and you don't do it again. Okay, so I have an O here and an O here, so that means I need X's on either side. So if you do it wrong, well, good thing you've got a few extra pages there because you can do it again, right? These are such teeny weeny pieces of paper. A lot of our books are going to be very small just because of materials. It's much easier than making something that's big when we're trying this out. Oh, that's glue on it. I'm going to move it over here. All right.
It also doesn't matter if you put your X's on the yellow sheet or the orange sheet, just as long as it was consistent. That's all we care about. If you wanted to use something else, some other symbol, like, I don't know, an A, B, go for it. All right, so now this is this. I'm not gonna get crazy into playing around with it because the glue does need to set up a little bit. So I've got this nice little stack, right? Here it is. Woo, woo, it's good. All right, more glue on this, not that. Why? Well, the glue does need to go over the entire surface here, but if I put it over this entire surface, this is slightly bigger than this piece of paper here. When we make books, you know, you can make them so that the pages are flush with the cover, but a lot of books traditionally had a little bit of an overhang, and that was simply to protect the pages within. And so this is designed in that way. It has a little bit of an overhang. So now this has glue on it, and I'm gonna have to eyeball this and put it right in the middle. There it is, right in the middle. I can sort of smooth it out, whoop, right? And now I'm ready to do this side. So again, little piece of paper, and the paper again is just so I don't get glue where I don't want it. So this stays nice and tidy. I am getting some glue on my fingers, which, you know, I can't figure out any way not to do that. So now I am going to put the covers together so that they line up. Oops, I want it to go in the same direction of the pattern. There it is, there it is. Flat, flat, flat. Okay, now I'm gonna squeeze it to let it know I want it to succeed, and lo and behold, it does. Hooray, there it is. Look, it works. Look, it's magic. So think of all the ways you could make an interesting structure with this. This could have imagery in it, right? That you could print. You could have a hidden message on these pages here. When you pull it all the way out, it could have one continuous image if you were clever enough to design it that way. So there are lots of possibilities with this sort of structure. Notice that the structure itself is going to support, you know, in our fantasy here, the content of the book. So this having a continuous image, that would be, the image would be the content, right? And this being put together would be what this book is about. At this point, this is a dummy book, right? We know a dummy book. Well, I guess dummy isn't such a kind term, but luckily our books don't care. They don't get upset. They don't mind being called dummy because they have nothing inside. This is just the structure. A structure is a structure is a structure. What makes art is the structure and the content, okay? So that is your Sweet Star accordion. I'm gonna show you some more accordion structures in another video. Thanks very much. I hope you enjoyed making your Sweet Star accordion. Bye.